Hi everyone, I'm Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm a literature teacher. For most of my life, I believed in something beautiful. I believed in true friendship. I had this friend, Chloe. We'd been inseparable since we were 10 years old. She wasn't just my best friend. She was my sister. We shared everything, our deepest secrets, our childhood memories, our dreams for the future. I trusted her with my life. But what I could never imagine is that the person I loved most as a friend would be the one who would completely destroy my life. This is my story. And trust me, you're not prepared for what happened next. Welcome to Revenge Cat. We reveal gripping stories of broken trust, family secrets, and shocking twists. If you crave powerful narratives, intense emotions, and the sweet taste of justice, this is your place. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Let me take you back to 6 months ago. My life was perfect. I was happily married to Daniel, my husband of 4 years. He's a software engineer, incredibly supportive, and we were planning to start a family soon. I loved my job teaching literature at the local high school, and I felt like everything was falling into place. Chloe was always around. She lived just 20 minutes away, and we saw each other at least twice a week. We'd go shopping together, have girls' nights, share everything. She knew my passwords. She had keys to my house. She even helped me with online purchases sometimes when I was too busy grading papers. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. How completely blind. It all started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning. I was preparing my lesson plan when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Carter, this is regarding your overdue payment on your Capital One credit card. You're currently 3 months behind, and we need immediate payment of $4.8 for $7. I laughed. Actually laughed. I'm sorry, but there's been a mistake. I don't have a Capital One credit card. The silence on the other end was unsettling. Ma'am, according to our records, this account was opened in your name 6 months ago. Your social security number ending in 4829, double quotes, my blood ran cold. That was my social security number. I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. There had to be some mistake. Identity theft happens to other people, right? Not to small-town literature teachers who live quiet lives. But the calls kept coming. The next day it was Chase Bank. Then American Express. Then some loan company I'd never heard of. Each call brought the same nightmare. Accounts opened in my name. Debts I never created. A financial disaster I never saw coming. Within a week, I was getting 15 calls a day. Debt collectors became my constant companions. They called during my classes, during dinner with Daniel, even at 6 in the morning. My phone became a weapon pointed at my chest, ready to deliver another blow every time it rang. The letters started arriving too. Thick envelopes with my name typed across the front, but addressed to apartments I'd never lived in, P.O. boxes I'd never opened. Each one contained bills for thousands of dollars, credit cards, personal loans, car payments for vehicles I'd never seen. My life started crumbling. I couldn't sleep. Every night, I'd lie awake next to Daniel, staring at the ceiling, wondering how this was happening to me. My appetite disappeared. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Dark circles formed under my eyes, and my students started asking if I was okay. But the worst part, the debt collectors found my workplace. Picture this, I am in the middle of teaching Shakespeare's Hamlet to my AP English class when there's a knock on my classroom door. The principal walks in with this man in a cheap suit who announces, loud enough for all my students to hear, "Emily Carter, you need to pay your debts." The humiliation was unbearable. 30 teenage faces staring at me, whispers starting immediately. By the end of the day, rumors were spreading through the entire school. Mrs. Carter is broke. She's going bankrupt. She can't pay her bills. My principal called me into his office that afternoon. Emily, he said, his voice gentle but concerned. Whatever's happening in your personal life, you need to handle it. This is affecting your professional reputation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't the one who created this mess, but how do you explain something you don't understand yourself? That evening, I broke down. Daniel found me on our kitchen floor, sobbing uncontrollably, surrounded by collection letters and overdue notices. I felt like I was drowning in someone else's life. "We'll figure this out," he kept saying, holding me tight. "We'll get through this together." But I could see the worry in his eyes. The confusion, the questions he was afraid to ask, the harassment escalated. Debt collectors started showing up at our house. Our neighbors began giving us strange looks. Mrs. Henderson from next door actually crossed the street to avoid me when I was getting my mail. The woman I'd baked cookies for every Christmas was treating me like a criminal. My anxiety reached a breaking point. I started having panic attacks in the grocery store, at school, even at home. My heart would race, my palms would sweat, and I'd feel like I couldn't breathe. Daniel started working from home more often because he was afraid to leave me alone. 3 months into this nightmare, I realized I was becoming a prisoner in my own life. I was afraid to answer my phone, afraid to check my mail, afraid to go to work. The woman who used to love teaching, who found joy in helping teenagers discover the beauty of literature, was disappearing piece by piece. That's when I knew I had to fight back. I started by filing a police report. Officer Martinez was sympathetic but honest. "Ma'am, identity theft cases like this can take months to investigate. The best thing you can do is contact the credit bureaus and start disputing these accounts, one by one." Months. I didn't have months. My reputation was being destroyed daily, and my mental health was hanging by a thread. So I made a decision that would change everything. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Webb, a former police detective who specialized in financial fraud. He was expensive. Money Daniel and I really couldn't afford to spend, but I was desperate. "Mrs. Carter," he said during our first meeting, "most identity theft is committed by someone close to the victim, someone who has access to personal information. I need you to think carefully. Who in your life knows your social security number? Who has access to your mail? Who could have gotten hold of your personal documents?" I made a list. Daniel, obviously, but the idea was ridiculous. My parents, who lived 3 states away. My sister, who lived in California and hadn't visited in 2 years. A few work colleagues who might have seen my information during HR processes. And Chloe. But I dismissed that thought immediately. Chloe was my best friend. She'd been there for me through everything. My father's heart attack. My wedding planning. The miscarriage I had 2 years ago that we never talk about. She was the sister I never had. Marcus started his investigation. He requested bank records, surveillance footage, and started tracing the paper trail of every fraudulent account. Meanwhile, I continued living in hell. The calls, the letters, the judgmental looks, they never stopped. 2 weeks into the investigation, Marcus called me with the first breakthrough. "Emily, I found something interesting. 3 of the credit card applications were filled out online, but they all originated from the same IP address. An address here in Austin." My heart started racing. What does that mean? It means whoever did this used the same internet connection for multiple applications. I'm working on tracking down the exact location. 3 days later, he called again. "I have the address. 2847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Does that address mean anything to you?" I felt like the world stopped spinning. My mouth went dry, and I had to sit down. "Emily, are you there? That's Chloe's apartment." The silence on Marcus's end told me everything I needed to know. "There has to be some mistake," I whispered. Maybe someone hacked her internet. Maybe, Emily, there's more. I found security footage from one of the banks where an account was opened in your name. The person who opened it. She has long blonde hair, about 5'6", mid-20s. Does that description fit anyone you know? I couldn't breathe. Chloe had long blonde hair. She was 5'6". She was 28 years old. I need to see that footage, I managed to say. I'll send it to you tonight. But Emily, prepare yourself. That evening felt like the longest of my life. Daniel and I sat at our kitchen table, my laptop open between us, waiting for Marcus's email. When it finally arrived, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely click the attachment. The video was grainy, black and white security footage from inside a Wells Fargo branch. The timestamp showed 3 months ago, right when my nightmare began. And there she was, Chloe, my best friend, my sister, standing at the customer service desk, handing over documents, smiling and chatting with the bank representative like she didn't have a care in the world. She was using my identity to open a checking account and apply for a credit card. I watched in horror as she signed papers with my name, using a signature that looked remarkably similar to mine. Daniel reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't process what I was seeing. This was the woman who had helped me plan my wedding, who had held me when I cried about the miscarriage, who had been my maid of honor, my confidant, my chosen family. I called Marcus immediately, not caring that it was past 9 o'clock. How long has this been going on? I demanded. Based on what I've found so far, at least 8 months. But Emily, there's something else you need to know. This wasn't random. This was calculated. She knew exactly what she was doing. What do you mean? She used your maiden name for some accounts, your middle name for others. She knew your mother's maiden name, your first pet's name, your high school. All those security question answers that banks ask for. This level of personal information. She had to have been planning this for a long time. I hung up the phone and just sat there, staring at my hands. Daniel tried to comfort me, but I felt numb. Completely empty. Then the memories started flooding back. All those times Chloe helped me with online purchases when I was too busy. She had my credit card information, my passwords, my security questions. All those documents she borrowed for just a minute when we were together. My driver's license, my social security card, my passport. I remembered last Christmas when she helped me organize my important papers. She said she was helping me create a filing system, but now I realized she was memorizing everything. Every detail of my financial life, and the apartment she mentioned 3 months ago. The one she said she couldn't afford anymore and might have to move out of. I had even offered to lend her money. But instead of asking me for help, she decided to steal my entire identity and destroy my life. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. This wasn't a stranger who had somehow gotten my information. This was someone who had eaten at my dinner table, who had been in my wedding, who I had trusted with my deepest secrets. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't eat the next day. I called in sick to work because I couldn't face my students, couldn't pretend everything was normal when my entire world had been turned upside down. But by the afternoon, the numbness started wearing off, and something else took its place. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. This woman had not only stolen my money, she had stolen my peace, my reputation, my sense of safety in the world. She had made me doubt myself, made me feel like a victim, made me afraid of my own life. Not anymore. I called Marcus and told him to compile everything he had found. Every piece of evidence, every fraudulent account, every forged signature. I wanted it all documented and ready for prosecution. Then I called the police. This time, I wasn't just filing a report, I was pressing charges. Detective Sarah Collins took my case. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who specialized in financial crimes. When I showed her the evidence Marcus had gathered, her expression grew dark. Mrs. Carter, this is one of the most comprehensive identity theft cases I've seen. Your friend didn't just steal your information, she essentially tried to become you. The amount of fraud here. She's looking at serious prison time. Good. The investigation moved quickly once we had concrete evidence. Detective Collins obtained warrants for Chloe's apartment, her bank records, her computer. They found everything. Fake IDs with my information, printed emails with my personal details, even practice sheets where she had been perfecting my signature. But the most shocking discovery was a notebook, a detailed notebook where she had mapped out her entire plan. Dates, account numbers, amounts she planned to steal. And at the very top of the first page, in her handwriting, were the words, Emily Carter Identity Project. She had turned destroying my life into a project. A systematic plan to steal everything I was and use it for her own benefit. The warrant for her arrest was issued on a Friday morning. I wasn't there when they arrested her. I couldn't bear to see her face. But Detective Collins called me immediately. We got her. She's been charged with identity theft, fraud, forgery, and several other felonies. She's looking at 5 to 7 years in prison. I should have felt relief. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt empty, hollow, like something inside me had died along with the friendship I thought we had. That weekend, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but when I answered, I heard a familiar voice. Emily, please, let me explain. It was Chloe, calling from jail. Explain. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Explain how you destroyed my life. Explain how you stole my identity and used it to rack up thousands of dollars in debt. Explain how you made me feel like I was losing my mind. Emily, I was desperate. I lost my job. I couldn't pay my rent. I was going to be evicted. I only meant to borrow a little money and pay it back before you ever knew. Borrow, I interrupted, my voice rising. You don't borrow someone's identity, Chloe. You don't forge their signature and open credit cards in their name. That's not borrowing. That's stealing. That's fraud. That's destroying someone's life. She was crying now. I'm so sorry, Emily. I never meant for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you. You're my best friend. No. My voice was steady now, cold. Best friends don't do this to each other. Best friends don't lie, steal, and betray. You're not my friend, Chloe. You never were. I hung up the phone. 3 months later, I found myself sitting in a courthouse, waiting to testify against the person I had once considered a sister. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, filled with fluorescent lighting that made everything look harsh and clinical. Chloe sat at the defendant's table with her public defender, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. When she saw me walk in, her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. The prosecutor, Ms. Rodriguez, had prepared me well for this moment. She had explained that my victim impact statement would be crucial in determining Chloe's sentence. When they called me to the stand, I walked up with my shoulders straight, my head held high. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's exactly what I did. I told the court about the phone calls, the letters, the debt collectors. I described the panic attacks, the sleepless nights, the way this had affected my marriage, my career, my sense of safety in the world. I explained how I had trusted this woman with everything. My passwords, my personal information, my deepest secrets. How she had used that trust to systematically destroy my financial life while pretending to be my friend. Your Honor, I said, looking directly at the judge. The defendant didn't just steal my money. She stole my peace of mind. She stole my sense of security. She made me doubt everyone and everything in my life. Then I turned to look at Chloe directly. She was crying, her shoulders shaking, but I felt no sympathy. "You didn't just rob my bank accounts," I said, my voice strong and clear. "You tried to rob my entire life. You took my name, my reputation, my identity, and you used them like they meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. I trusted you with everything I had, and you threw it all away for money. You destroyed 22 years of friendship for a few $1,000s, and the worst part, you did it while looking me in the eye, hugging me, pretending to care about my problems. Problems that you were creating." The courtroom was completely silent. "But here's what you need to understand. I'm not the victim anymore. I'm a survivor. And I want everyone in this room to know exactly who you are and what you've done." When I finished my statement, the judge nodded solemnly. The prosecutor presented all the evidence. The forged signatures, the fake accounts, the detailed notebook where Chloe had planned every aspect of her fraud. Chloe's lawyer tried to argue for leniency. They talked about her difficult childhood, her recent job loss, her struggles with depression. They painted her as a desperate woman who had made terrible choices, but deserved a second chance. I listened to it all with growing anger. Excuses. That's all they were offering. Excuses for behavior that was inexcusable. When the judge asked if Chloe wanted to make a statement, she stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Your Honor, I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt Emily, and I hate myself for it. She was my best friend, and I betrayed her trust in the worst possible way. I was desperate and scared, but that's no excuse. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I just hope that someday Emily can forgive me." The judge was not impressed. "Ms. Johnson," she said, her voice stern, "this was not a crime of passion or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, systematic fraud that lasted for months. You planned this carefully, executed it methodically, and showed no remorse until you were caught. The level of betrayal you showed toward someone who trusted you is particularly disturbing. I hereby sentence you to 5 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation. You will also pay full restitution to the victim for all financial damages, plus court costs and fees." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom. It was over. Walking out of that courthouse was one of the most liberating experiences of my life. The Texas sun felt warmer on my face, the air smelled sweeter, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt like I could breathe freely. Daniel was waiting for me on the courthouse steps, and when he wrapped his arms around me, I finally let myself cry. Not tears of sadness or fear, but tears of relief. The nightmare was finally over. But winning in court was just the beginning of my real journey. The journey of rebuilding my life. The first step was clearing my credit report. Even with the court judgment, it took months of phone calls, paperwork, and dispute letters to get every fraudulent account removed from my record. Each cleared account felt like a small victory, like reclaiming another piece of myself. Marcus, my private investigator, helped me set up credit monitoring services and showed me how to protect myself from future identity theft. I learned about freezing my credit reports, using complex passwords, and being more careful with my personal information. The emotional healing took much longer. For months after the trial, I jumped every time the phone rang. I double-checked my bank statements obsessively. I found myself questioning the motives of everyone around me. My coworkers, my neighbors, even some of my other friends. Trust, I learned, is like a delicate glass sculpture. Once it's shattered, you can put the pieces back together, but it will never look quite the same again. My marriage to Daniel grew stronger through this ordeal, but it wasn't easy. The stress of the situation had put a strain on both of us. We started seeing a couples therapist to work through the impact of what had happened. Daniel had his own guilt to process. Guilt about not being able to protect me, about not seeing the signs earlier. How did I not know? He would ask. How did I not see what Chloe was doing? The answer was simple but painful. Because neither of us could imagine that someone we loved could be capable of such betrayal. My relationship with my students and colleagues at school gradually returned to normal. Once the local news picked up the story of Chloe's arrest and conviction, people understood what had really happened. The whispers stopped, the suspicious looks disappeared, and I was able to hold my head up high again. My principal, Mr. Thompson, was incredibly supportive throughout the entire ordeal. He never once made me feel like my personal problems were affecting my professional standing, and he went out of his way to make sure I felt valued and respected at work. Most importantly, I rediscovered my strength. The woman who had cowered in her kitchen, surrounded by collection letters and overwhelmed by panic attacks, was gone. In her place was someone harder, wiser, more resilient. I started speaking at local community centers about identity theft prevention. I shared my story with other victims who were going through similar ordeals. I learned that my experience, as painful as it was, could help others avoid the same trap or find their way out of it. 6 months after the trial, Daniel and I decided to start trying for a family again. We had put those plans on hold during the worst of the identity theft crisis, but now we felt ready to move forward with our lives. I was finally pregnant 2 months later. As I write this story, I am 7 months along with our first child, a little girl we're planning to name Hope. The irony is lost on me that the person who tried to steal my identity is now in prison, while I'm creating new life, new hope, new possibilities. Sometimes people ask me if I ever think about Chloe. If I wonder how she's doing in prison, if I feel any sadness about losing such a long friendship. The honest answer is complicated. Do I think about her? Yes, sometimes. But not with sadness or longing. I think about her as a lesson learned, a chapter closed. A reminder of how important it is to trust my instincts and protect myself. Do I feel bad about the 22 years of friendship we had? That's harder to answer. Those memories feel tainted now, like a photograph that's been exposed to too much light. I find myself questioning everything we shared, wondering what was real and what was manipulation. But here's what I know for certain. I don't regret pursuing justice. I don't regret pressing charges. I don't regret telling my story. Chloe made a choice. Many choices, actually, to betray my trust and destroy my life for her own benefit. She chose to lie to my face while stealing my identity. She chose to let me suffer in confusion and fear while she knew exactly what was happening to me. Those were her choices, and she deserved to face the consequences. If there's one thing I want everyone watching this to understand, it's this. The greatest danger doesn't always come from strangers in dark alleys or hackers on the internet. Sometimes, the person who will hurt you most is sitting right across from you at dinner, laughing at your jokes, sharing your secrets, wearing the mask of friendship. The signs were there, but I ignored them because I couldn't imagine that someone I loved could be capable of such betrayal. I trusted blindly because I thought that's what friendship meant. Now I know better. Trust is earned, not given. True friends don't need access to all your personal information. They don't borrow your documents or ask for your passwords. They don't show up when your life falls apart because they were the ones who pushed you off the cliff. My name is Emily Carter. I'm a mother to be, a teacher, a wife, and a survivor. My identity belongs to me. No one can steal it, no one can use it, and no one can diminish it without my permission. To anyone out there dealing with identity theft, financial fraud, or betrayal by someone close to you, you are stronger than you know. The road to recovery is long and difficult, but it's worth every step. Don't let someone else's choices define your life or your future. And to those who might be tempted to betray a friend's trust for easy money or personal gain, remember that some things, once broken, can never be fully repaired. The short-term gain will never be worth the long-term consequences, both legal and personal. My best friend didn't just steal my identity, she tried to steal my entire life. But she failed. I'm still here, stronger than ever, with a beautiful life ahead of me and a daughter on the way. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal destroy your future. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helps even one person protect themselves or find the strength to fight back, then sharing this painful experience will have been worth it. Remember, you are more resilient than you think, and you deserve so much better than fake friends and false loyalty. Trust wisely, love carefully, and never let anyone convince you that their crisis justifies destroying your life. For more exciting videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share. If you want powerful narratives, strong emotions, and the sweet taste of justice, this is your place.